Reddit. What are you? The moment I knew I have to get out of this relationship? When my best friend turned around to me, looked me dead in the eye and said, have you noticed that you're happier when he's not around? That is a good best friend right there. That's a tough topic to launch. I watched my best friend die horribly in an accident, was there when it happened, rode with him to the hospital in the ambulance, was standing there when the doctors pronounced him, waited there until the folks from the morgue downstairs came to get the body, then called his family and told them. That all took pretty much the entire night, and I had an exam the previous day, so I had pulled an all-nighter then as well. So by the end of it I had been awake for about 49 hours. Came staggering into my apartment at 6 AM, saw my fiancée, and burst into tears. I told him what happened. He stared at me for a sec, then said, you know we are supposed to have a breakfast date with Chris and Annie in like an hour. Are you seriously going to bail on that? Yep. Broke up with him that evening when I woke up. Have never regretted it. Whoa. Frick that callous bastard. Frick him right in the ear. When I was sleeping peacefully and she jumped on me and started strangling me in my sleep because she found a new girl's phone number in my phone. We were having this conversation about open relationships for the 10th time when it suddenly dawned on me that I never wanted to have this conversation again. I told him, you know, I think you should frick whoever you want. His face brightened. You do? He asked incredulously. Yes, I said, it's obviously very important to you. So I'm going to be out by the end of the week, and then you will be completely free to do as you please. That was the end. I wish I had the guts to have said no. When I was considering getting on antidepressants because I was so unhappy being married to him, I realized how fricked up it was that I was considering medication just to tolerate our marriage. I went and got on antidepressants. It wasn't until they just never worked that I realized I wasn't depressed. I was in a crappy relationship. When he cheated on me, got her pregnant, and then told me I should pay child support because I didn't put out. I was 15. And that's why he had to go out and cheat on me. That's class. When my ex told me she would abuse her cat and dog for shoots and giggles, I was out of there faster than Lando escaping the exploding Death Star. Man, I had an ex reveal that she'd poisoned her rabbit because she hated it and thought this was hilarious. She dropped it like it would be hilarious, and I just looked at her. I was floored. We broke up on the spot. When she screamed at our entire flat, me and 4 others, for letting the man in who is stalking her, or not kicking him out when we saw him in the living room. There was no man in the living room, nor did the man exist. My ex-girlfriend never really got along with my family. Too many minor things had happened that caused a strain in their relationship. There were 2 cases that led me to realize there was no way in heck that we would work out. One was when she told me once we get married, you're stuck with me, and if you ever think of divorcing me, I will keep everything you ever worked for and make your life heck. Mind you, this was about 6 months into our relationship. Later on she said, once we get married you will no longer speak to your family, no contact with your siblings or your mother. I ended that relationship not long after that. When I realized that we hadn't had sex for almost 6 months and that I was happier when I was spending time without her. Very subtle cues. When I realized that I was actively avoiding going out with my friends because I knew she would inevitably cause a scene and ruin the evening. Just wasn't worth it anymore. That reminds me of the time I asked a girl not to say the N-bomb in front of my friends. Then she proceeded to yell it twice. He told me I was only allowed to be friends with white people, and if he saw me talking to any insert racial slur here, he'd dump me. Then he started talking about how he needed me to have his white children. He was Hispanic, so I never really understood his logic on that one. Maybe he's the Mexican Clayton Bixby. The day she punched me in the face and then tried to continue our relationship while she was living at her ex-boyfriend's house. Same here. Punched me in the temple when I wouldn't walk and get her Chinese food. Then her mother walked in and said, don't hit Tyler. That's why your dad left me. Then I figured it was probably time to go home. Late to the party, but hey, when I was a sophomore I had my first girlfriend. She was a senior and pretty dang attractive if I do say so. I was feeling pretty good about myself. Anyway, we had been dating for about 2 months when we decided to hang out at her house for the first time. She gave me the grand tour of her house. We made out, went to her room, made out, and so on. She showed me some cool things she had collected over the years, and as we were going through her jewelry box I noticed a particularly cool looking ring. "What's the story behind this one?" I ask. "Oh," she responds, "that's just a ring from my fiance. Turns out he was out of town for a while. In Iraq." Frick that crap. After our 8-year relationship and 4 of those years going straight downhill, I asked him if he would try couples counseling. He said no. He was absolutely against it. That's when I told him we should break up. I later found out the reason why he was so against it, because then it would come out that he had been cheating on me for 5 years. When I told him I didn't want to live with him because I wanted to finish school, and he told me a degree isn't important. That, and when I told him I thought we needed to talk because I was unhappy, instead of talking with me and figuring it out, he took his Xbox from my room and left. That was the last time I saw him. Then his mom emailed me telling me I was an awful person. Winners. I was living in Florida, homesick for New York, fighting with the crazy blonde girl I'd moved in with. Suddenly, in the bathroom, she threw a right hook. I blocked it. She threw a left. I blocked that too. As I stood there holding both her wrists, she kicked me square in the balls. In the 4 or 5 seconds I had before the pain kicked in, I threw her into a tight headlock. Together we fell to the floor of the bathroom, locked in combat, cursing and screaming at one another. Over her muffled screams, writhing beneath the toilet, I had a moment of intense, overwhelming clarity. As I stared curiously at the dirt and grime around the base of the bowl, a calm stole over me. It was at that exact moment that I knew the relationship was over. All of the fighting, all of the caring, all of the stupid crap I'd done to keep things going. It all seemed so totally absurd. Every ounce of desire I had to still be with her was completely gone. So I let go of my girlfriend and started laughing hysterically. My laughter took all the wind out of her sails. Instantly there was fear in her eyes. "What?" she asked. "Why are you laughing?" But I only shook my head and smiled. I was already thinking about whether I wanted to sell my motorcycle and fly home, or somehow drive it back to NY. Within days I'd sold my stuff and moved out. She begged and pleaded, of course, but the decision had been made. I'm still in NY and happier than ever, but I'll never forget the floor under that toilet. You know, that was quite beautifully written. I could picture that all so clearly. Sucks what happened, but I'm glad you are living a happier life equals. I walked in on my girlfriend in bed with another woman. They had all of a sudden become best friend in less than a month. Trust me, lesbian sex is not nearly as attractive when you are in love with one of the participants. When I caught her in bed with a gigolo, I might have forgiven infidelity. We all make mistakes and I have been tempted to. But fricking a gigolo? Game over. Everything was okay until I actually married her. After that things went downhill fast. The biggest problem was that I started to get sick constantly. I had always had good health up until marrying her. One day everything came into focus when we had someone else went to use the mayonnaise in the fridge. She freaked out and literally ran across the kitchen grabbing it out of his hand. She calmly walked over and handed it to me, saying that I was the only one allowed to eat the mayonnaise. It was then that I realized she was probably intentionally poisoning me. Our relationship had always gotten better when I was sick and helpless. She was widowed when I met her. I can't help wonder if her late husband was her victim. After we had split and I was waiting to file for divorce. In Canada you have to wait 1 year before filing for an uncontested divorce. She phoned me up out of the blue and wanted to know specifics about my life insurance policy. This came after a few months of no communication and with no small talk. For the next few weeks I found myself looking over my shoulder wondering if she had hired a hitman to whack me. Sound crazy? Besides my life insurance policy, I found out that she would have been able to collect a second federal survivor's death benefit from the government. She would have been able to continue collecting her late husband's and then mine. It sounds morbid, but I was worth more to her dead than alive. She poured a glass of water into my 360, not because I was playing it too much or anything. There weren't any good games out that year, but because I walked away from an argument so we could both cool off and she wanted to hurt something she knew I loved. These were days before I became a mechanic and literally saved for months to buy that 360, but she knew that. Needless to say, she is long gone, and I replaced my fallen homie with a new version with built-in Wi-Fi. Gotta stay positive. D. When she threatened to frick her co-workers if she didn't get her way. After 4 years of bulls, my eyes flew open to it all. Working a new job, with a 1-year-old baby, still breastfeeding. My sex drive wasn't what it normally is. Phone bill comes in, $200 worth of phone sex charges. I sit him down, remind him that our budget was way too tight for that. Explain I don't have a problem with phone sex per se, but if we had $200 to blow, I'd let him get a couple of blowjobs from H if he needed to blow off steam that bad. But we don't have an extra $200 right now. He apologizes. We have a good discussion about getting our intimacy on the right track. Next month's cell phone bill is $800. It was higher than our rent at the time. We literally could not pay the bill. I found I actually could afford more by moving out. He spent more than he made even without the crazy phone sex charges. Did not know that people still do phone sex this day and age. Aside from that, good for you for walking out. When I started to hate spending time with her, there was also a 2-hour fight because I wanted to spend a day alone to work on some of my hobbies when she said I don't see how you can say you love someone and not want to spend as much time with them as possible. When I was grocery shopping one day and just stopped mid-track, realizing the man I wanted to marry was the one who thought I wasn't beautiful and called me fat and ugly and told me other girls were much more attractive than me. That with him I'd spend the rest of my life knowing I wasn't beautiful to the man I wanted to be beautiful for. I also realized how everything wasn't working between us, including our family life, and our relationship was a wreck on that day. Sadly, I stayed with him for several months more before I cut it off with him because I had no self-worth. Young, stupid love. He's probably projecting his crap load of insecurities on you. He's nothing more than a bully who destroys other people to feel better about himself. When I realized she was an emotional vampire, Jesus Christ, that woman almost killed me. One emotion. When I threw him a surprise 21st birthday party and invited all his friends who all had a great time as did he, until he drank a handle of Jack and got in the tub fully clothed trying to drown himself, saying I'd rather die than spend another day with you. Mind you, I worked 3 jobs to keep our apartment while he sat home and played Call of Duty all day. Needless to say, I was out after that. The time I found out my 26-year-old ex was having sex with a 15-year-old girl, I think that moment was pretty defining. When we both knew the relationship was on its last leg, he told me the only way that this relationship was salvageable was if my mother agreed to write him a letter and have it notarized, stating that she would never disobey his wishes. I had never introduced him to my family, as per his request. Apparently, he felt disrespected that she had displayed an interest in wanting to meet him one day. I ended it right there. In an argument, she threw a glass of grape juice at my face, glass and all. I dodged it. It hit our white wall and fell on our white carpet. I freaked about the staining. Then I realized that 1, she made us buy and install white carpet, and 2, she made me care about white carpet. I was so gone the next day. This all happened on Skype, only typing. Him. I need to tell you something that's been bothering me. Me. What is it? Him. Last time we had sex, I noticed you have a hair on your nipple. It really ruined the moment for me. Me. What? Him. Yeah, it's really gross. Please pluck it. Also, I feel really disrespected and undervalued in this relationship because you don't try hard enough to be pretty for me. Me. Are you freaking serious? Him. You know, reasonable adults can take constructive criticism. I think the fact that you are angry with me shows that you are really immature. Yup, that was the end for me. That's just beautiful. You have a hair on your nipple and it ruined sex for me, but you're immature. When he cancelled our trip to Disneyland because his mother called from across the country and told him to drop everything and condo hunt for her, she didn't trust his ability to live on his own and decided to move near us to keep tabs on him. He didn't see why cancelling our trip at the whim of his puppeteer was a problem. He was 27 years old. It should have been when I found his massive folder of crotch underskirt downshot pictures of various female friends. I understand being attracted to someone, but taking creepy little sneak shots of them and naming and categorizing them is freaking weird and indicative of a warped personality. It should have been when he cheated on me with his ex-girlfriend. First time. It should have been any of the hundreds of times I caught him lying in bed with some other chick. And being a huge noob at the time, not being able to say anything to him about it for fear of him getting angry with me. It should have been after I realized that he didn't give a crap about my well-being, but the desire to have a certain type of relationship is strong and one tends to fall in denial. Maybe it should have been the first time that he started choking me and grabbing my face. Forceful physical pushes with his arm firmly pressed into my neck that would leave me feeling helpless while he felt smugly superior. The hitting would only escalate until he would throw me onto the bed and jab his elbows into my chest lungs, or lifting me off my feet by my neck and wringing it so hard I was losing vision. I had to draw blood with my nails for him to stop. Maybe the fact that he had another fling with his ex-girlfriend again, although she eventually ditches him to stay with her boyfriend lols. Or coming home with random hickeys, or sneaking out while I was at work, or a huge goddamn list of red flags I ignored because I was so in love. And just, God, if I could have those issues go away, we could have the best relationship ever. I could and did get beaten up, and yet I kept coming back. Abusive relationships are no fun at all. The best prevention is to be confident with your own single solitary life and to be able to know when to stand up for yourself and when to leave. If a guy or girl, because there are several noob forever alone men here who will fall prey to a douchebag chick, makes you feel like crap, he isn't worth spending your time on. When she got so angry in the middle of an argument that she started attacking me, I decided to let her cool down, pushed her off of me, and stormed out of the house. She followed me outside and tried to hurl a cooler at my head as I left. The moment when I dodged the cooler, the only thought in my head was, well, frick this crazy bee, I'm gone. It wasn't when he left me at a bar to bang a girl in my truck. It wasn't when I found excess Victoria's Secret panties in his bed, when I couldn't fit into their XL panties. It wasn't when he dragged me through downtown Toronto because I wasn't walking fast enough. Peas, I walk with a cane. It wasn't when he threw me to the ground and started kicking me when one of his friends bought me a beer at a concert. It wasn't when he wouldn't allow me to eat anything other than 1 cup of white rice a day. It was when an older black gentleman at Costco told me I had beautiful eyes and that he could tell the heavens would sing at my smile. It was really ridiculous, but he was so nice that I burst into tears. I was then dragged to the car. When we got back to the apartment, he was screaming and throwing me around, and I bit him. It was the only move available to me, and he stopped. He let go of me, but I was so afraid of the look in his eyes that I ran and never looked back. This is kind of a small one, but we were walking through the park one day, and we saw a swing set. There were no little kids around, so I jokingly grabbed his hand and said, "Come on, let's go swing." He got mad at me for being stupid and immature. When I realized that I was her entire social life, that and the fact that I had absolutely no free time because she always needed to see me. For Veralones of Reddit, you may think that a clingy, nerdy shut-in girl is a godsend. I'm here to disappoint you and say that you're completely and utterly wrong. I think what some people, the clingers, fail to realize is no person can make you happy or complete. You have to be those things on your own before you can be with anyone. Otherwise you just smother them because it is way too much pressure to be what makes someone else happy. When I started having to pay the price for fricked up things her previous boyfriends had done, she would yell at me as though I was the one that hit her. Never touched her in that way previous boyfriend had. She started trying to interrogate me because she was convinced I, like a different previous boyfriend, was cheating on her. I never cheated. Come to think of it, I ended a number of my relationships when I realized that women were running me through a gauntlet in reaction to their past romantic injuries. OP, don't do this to the next guy you date. Your ex cheated on you, and that sucks, but it's not your next boyfriend's fault. Remember that. I will. It is hard though not to feel cautious the next time around. I've been a lurker for almost 2 years now, but this drove me to create an account. After being diagnosed with 2 mental conditions that changed my world and being forced to take a year off grad school because of them. My ex, who I had dated for 4 years, promised to be at my side and help me through this. That month she started sleeping with a friend of mine, telling me lies, and forcing me to believe that I needed her. It didn't take me long to find out, and after 5 months of that, I was finally able to end things with her. 2 years later, I'm working through grad school with my crap in order and the sweetest girl at my side. Me begging an now ex boyfriend who was stumbling and slurring not to go back into a bar we had just left. His response was "Get out of my way or I will break your neck." This guy knew he had a drinking problem. He had gotten DUIs, lost jobs, and ruined a lot of relationships with family and friends over the way he was when he's drinking. But I think he kinda enjoyed his having a reason to drink. Let me preface this story by admitting I had absolutely no self-respect at this time in my life, and this was my first serious relationship, which started in high school. Though we had been living together for about 4 months during college and she wanted to break up. However, she didn't want me to leave because she just wanted to date other people to see what it was like. Instead of telling her to frick off and asking her, "Hey, would you ever think that would ever be appropriate for either of us while we were still living together?" I took the low self-esteem route and said yes. Nothing changed. We were still in the same relationship after this. We were still sleeping together and we went on with our daily lives like the conversation never happened. I found out later, however, she was telling all her friends how we weren't together anymore. Things began to go south quickly, as they often do in this situation. Every time I felt I had had enough, I would tell her I was leaving. He would practically beg me to stay and I didn't have the balls to say no. I finally knew it was over when I heard her having sex with another guy in our house. This wasn't like I was out and then walked in and heard it. This was the middle of the day, on my day off, and I was sitting on the couch in the living room. It was probably the single most painful and liberating experience of my life. I was gone 2 days after that. I vowed to never let anyone walk on me the way she did again. I am so happy with the person I am today and the person that I'm with because I've found a good person I don't feel trapped by and wouldn't bat an eye for a second to tell her to frick off if she said we were on a break. I say that because I know she would say the same thing. We both know we deserve to be treated well because that's how we want to be treated. The 5th or so time I had to talk to my ex about how when I say no, I would not like that. I would be upset if you did. That means exactly what I said. It does not mean I would secretly like it or secretly find it romantic or that I would just pretend to be angry. When he blew past some of my comfort zones despite these talks and being surprised that I reacted exactly as I said I would and was not happy with him was my time to bail moment. Other fun stories include an ex that faked a medical issue to get out of anything he did not want to do. The guy I was dating who asked me out by adding that he wanted to buy a gun and gets more money from his parents when in a relationship. A guy I was starting a relationship with that informed me he was actually very controlling, possessive, and attempted suicide multiple times when his previous girlfriend tried to leave him and then was shocked when I promptly ended all contact. The guy I was seeing who decided to come clean and admit he already had a girlfriend and then tried to kiss me immediately after. And my first boyfriend who told me I was about 15 pounds heavier than the girls he usually dated. Then grabbed and honked my boobs. I know how to pick you guys. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.